How do you know it's getting close to election season? Because the Liberals are banning more guns. Hey guys, Canadian Renegade here. I'm in a bit of a foul mood today because even though I knew this was coming, another gun ban, it's still just listening to the lies and hypocrisy from these people that have no respect for our property rights. It just gets me all riled up. I'm going to listen to a little bit of it and react. So here we go.
My name is Rachel Bende and I'm the Associate Minister of Public Safety and the Minister for Official Languages. I'm a proud Canadian. I've got my elbows up this morning. I'm here to make an announcement on gun control measures that will help save lives and keep Canadians safe. I want to start by thanking all the incredible people that are joining us today, including advocates from Police se souvient, the National Association of Women and the Law, Canadian Doctors for Protection from Guns, the Pan-Canadian Student Movement for Gun Control, the Danforth families.
How much would you be willing to bet that the majority of those organizations that she just listed probably get government funding too? So it's basically a big circle, you know what?
This is public safety policy, but it is also personal. As a mother, as a lawyer, as an elected official, and now as minister, I have been working alongside the Canadians standing with me here and many, many more for several years now, working to make our communities safer for our kids, working to make the women we know and love feel safer, working to stem the gun violence we see in our cities. We set out on an ambitious path, and it has been a long road.
I can tell you right now that the gun violence in your cities is not going to go down. It's mostly illegal guns. This is going to have very little to no effect, and you're just lying.
In 2020, our federal government banned what is now over 2,000 models of assault-style firearms. In 2022-23, our government passed legislation to freeze the market for handguns in Canada, banning the sale, transfer, and importation of handguns into the country. Just recently, in December 2024, we went further, banning some of the additional assault-style weapons that remained in the Canadian market.
So just come out and say it. You guys are trying to ban every single semi-automatic there is. You haven't gotten around to the SKS yet, but you pretty much even banned most of the 22 semi-automatics just because some of them look scary. It's a joke.
Today, our government is finishing the job, adding a further 179 unique makes and models of assault-style weapons to the list of prohibited firearms here in Canada. This prohibition takes effect immediately.
You know, last I checked, assault style doesn't actually mean that it's a real assault weapon. You know, like if I went to a burger joint and they were going to give me a beef style patty, it's not actually beef. You guys understand that, right? Like, they're just saying assault style because it sounds scary. It means nothing. All they're saying is they want to ban all the semi-autos. That's it. And they pretty much have.
It is our hope, our government's intention, that this be the last discrete listing of assault-style firearms for prohibition. If we finish the job well, we have all the tools necessary to ensure that new models of assault-style weapons will be captured and denied legal entry into the Canadian market. Let's be clear, these are weapons of war, firearms designed specifically to kill as many people as possible in the least amount of time possible.
No, they're not weapons of war. A few of them might be loosely based on weapons of war. The majority of these semis that you guys are banning they're just semi-automatics. Some of them look scary, some of them don't, but you guys are just banning everything, and you're lying. That's all you guys do is lie.
As with previous prohibitions, the weapons we are banning today are semi-automatic firearms with sustained rapid-fire capability.
How are they going to have sustained rapid-fire capability when the magazine capacity limit is 5 in Canada? I guess you can sustain for 5 rounds.
Experts have told us that they exceed safe civilian use.
It would be nice for once to actually hear who these experts are, because, you know, I can say experts say all sorts of things, but if you're not going to list who it is, then it doesn't really mean anything at all to me.
I take my responsibilities as minister very seriously. In a world filled with uncertainty, my top priority is keeping Canadians safe.
No, it's not. Your top priority is banning guns because you just hate guns. If you wanted to keep Canadians safe, you'd stop the illegal guns coming over the border.
Firearms meant for the battlefield should never see the light of day on our streets.
Once again, these firearms are not meant for the battlefield. You're just saying that.
Canadians have seen firsthand the devastating impact of these weapons. Polytechnique, Port-au-Pique, Moncton, Dawson, the Quebec City mosque shooting.
Why don't you talk about how the guns at Port-au-Pique were illegally smuggled in from the United States?
These tragedies represent dark moments in our country's history. Canadians are also very well aware of the impact of firearms in the United States, where there they experience about 600 mass shootings per year, nearly 2 per day. And those are mass shootings. In 2022, there were over 48,000 firearm-related deaths in the U.S.
They also don't have a vetted licensing system like we do here. Any adult can literally just walk into a gun store and buy a gun as long as they're not a felon. And they have a problem with illegal guns as well.
Here in Canada, our federal government has taken action to strengthen gun control and tackle gun violence head-on. As a result of the various steps we have taken, we've seen a decline in violent crime involving firearms across Canada. Data for 2023 was just recently released by Statistics Canada and shows that this decline was most pronounced in large urban areas, with a decrease of violent crime involving guns of 19% in Toronto, a decrease of 12% in Montreal, of 15% in Vancouver, and a decline of 22% in Calgary.
So assuming that we can even trust that data, I noticed that you listed out a bunch of individual cities. I'd like to know what the overall rate was for all of Canada.
Although homicides involving firearms had risen year over year previously, in 2023, the rate dropped by 18%. There were, in fact, 54 fewer firearm-related homicides in Canada in 2023. Reducing the number of guns in circulation helps reduce gun violence.
You guys banned guns in 2020. Why didn't the stats go down for 2021 and 2022? So even if they did go down for 2023, you guys literally just got lucky that there was an anomaly in the trend. Just because there's one year that's different doesn't mean the trend line is changing. Also, I would like to know, are we talking about just gun murders, or are we talking about the overall amount of murders? Because if the murderers just switch the type of weaponry from guns to machetes or baseball bats or something like that, that still doesn't mean that Canadians are safer. There's a growing conversation here in Canada about implementing American-style laws around castle doctrine and concealed carry because the crime is getting so bad that people don't feel safe.
I am happy to say that the Buyback program has been underway since early December and that it is so far extremely successful. As it stands, the first phase of the program covers assault-style firearms that were prohibited in 2020 and that are in the hands of our stores and retailers. As of today, nearly 7,500 firearms have been submitted by businesses across the country for collection and destruction. The large majority of them have already been destroyed.
These poor businesses have been holding on to these guns for the last 4 years, and there's no other way that they can get rid of them. So they're basically capitulating and selling their guns off to you guys, probably for less than what they're actually worth. And they just need to free up the capital because basically they have capital locked up in inventory they can't sell. So
I had the opportunity to personally witness the destruction of some of these firearms, and I want to give a sincere thanks to the men and women of the RCMP for the professionalism with which they do this work. Thank you.
Yeah, we all know how well the RCMP handles firearms. They can't even keep track of their own firearms.
I'm also happy to report that the government will be ready later this spring to commence compensating Canadians. Canadian firearm owners that work with the police of jurisdiction across the country. I will leave the Deputy Commissioner of the RCMP to respond to questions in that regard. But let me tell you from the political perspective how heartened I am by the interest of so many jurisdictions already. I'm happy to announce today that we have just signed a contribution agreement with the City of Winnipeg to participate in the program fully, and several agreements are on their way for signature.
Well, I'm certainly glad I don't live in Winnipeg, but what are the Winnipeg police planning on doing? Are they going to go door to door kicking in people's doors? Don't they have better things to do? Maybe they should try to figure out how to reduce the amount of machete attacks they have in Winnipeg instead.
Before I move on, allow me to specify and to reassure Canadian hunters in particular. Even with a successful completion of the buyback program, even with the prohibition we are adding today, there are still over 19,000 unique makes and models of non-restricted firearms available for hunting and sport shooting in Canada.
Sure, there's a lot of hunting rifles that are still available, but we know that you're just saying that, and that as soon as you get these guns, you're going to come after the rest. You guys never stop, and you always lie about it.
Today, we are taking yet another important step to strengthen gun control. Today, our government is announcing the launch of a comprehensive review of the firearms classification regime. This responds directly to a key recommendation of the Mass Casualty Commission, recommendations from an independent expert advisory panel, recommendations from industry and industry representatives, as well as calls from both gun control advocates and gun owners. We are answering that call.
I have no idea who you got from industry or from gun owners that approve of this, but if you did, it's certainly less than maybe 1% of the gun owners and industry people. Nobody supports this.
The current firearm classification system originated back in the 1960s. Since then, it has become ever increasingly more complex. In fact, we now have one of the most complex systems of firearm classification in the world.
And who made it more complex? You guys, because you kept trying to figure out ways to ban a few guns here and a few guns there. Obviously, when you guys reclassify these guns, you're just going to take more guns. That's how you guys operate. Like, why would I expect anything different from you guys?
This creates challenges for law enforcement, and we've heard that directly from our policing partners. It also creates challenges for lawful gun owners who deserve certainty.
I don't have a problem keeping track of the categories of my guns. I don't know why you guys do. Like I said, you guys are the ones that are coming up with these classifications. And also, you could just have a listing that lists the make and models, and anybody could just go online and look it up.
I want to be very clear on this point. The overwhelming majority of gun owners abide by the law. But it's become harder and harder for people who want to do the right thing to follow a classification system that is so complex. In the past, we've seen some firearm models that were designed for military use be later marketed for hunting and civilian use. The SKS, for example, was a firearm designed by the USSR for use in the Second World War. When the war was over, the surplus, of which there was a considerable volume, was dumped at a low price into the Canadian civilian market and marketed for hunting.
As for the SKS, it's a fine deer rifle, and you just admitted it. So I thought these guns were only good for war or for killing people.
Tackling complex issues like this one, where Russian firearms designed for one use are then marketed for hunting in Canada. It requires a thoughtful and comprehensive approach to how we classify firearms in this country.
It doesn't matter what they were designed for, it's what they're used for. And licensed gun owners in Canada, we follow the law, and we use our guns for sport shooting, hunting, and recreation. We don't use them for crime. Those are the illegal guns, right? Criminals don't care about the law already, and they certainly don't care about these gun laws that you're passing.
Just before my appointment in December, we tabled draft regulations on the firearms reference table. Following extensive consultations and feedback over the last number of weeks, including feedback from stakeholders, I believe that these regulations should be made stronger. That is why I've instructed my officials to strengthen these rules so that manufacturers and importers have to wait for the completion of a technical assessment and obtain a reference number before new guns enter the Canadian market.
Great, more red tape. I'm sure all the sporting goods stores and gun shops are going to love this. You guys are just looking for one way or another to put everybody out of business.
Now, let me take you to a final aspect on what I've been working on with women's groups these last many weeks and years. Let me walk you through the concrete step that we are taking today to address the use of firearms in situations of domestic violence and gender-based violence. Advocates, many of them standing behind me today, have been calling on us to act decisively to address this scourge at the root of so much suffering. I can announce today that our federal government is moving forward on implementing additional provisions of C-21 to ensure that individuals who are convicted of an offense during which violence was used, threatened, or attempted against their partner or against any member of their family cannot obtain a firearms license.
That's pretty much the way it is now. I've never really heard of anybody that has been violent getting a firearms license.
Any request for a license must be refused. Firearms licenses will also be revoked if authorities have grounds to suspect that an act of domestic violence or stalking are taking place.
No judge, no jury, no due process. Just some random person accuses you of doing something and they can just come take your guns.
Taken together, the measures I am announcing on behalf of the federal government today represent a significant and meaningful step to strengthen gun control in Canada. It is a testament to our government's commitment to tackling gun violence head-on. This is not just policy for me. This is personal for me and for so many women across the country whose lives have been upended by dangerous guns falling into the wrong hands. Women in particular have been asking for the measures being announced today, and they didn't do it just for themselves, but for our children and the next generation. And our government stands with them and is delivering for them.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering why it was all women standing up there. What I would say to that is women in cities don't really know anything about guns. So of course, all they know about guns is what they've seen on TV. Basically, the people that know the least about guns are the ones that are advocating to take away the guns.
The safety of women, the safety of all Canadians is a nonpartisan issue. Pierre Poilievre and his Conservative Party have said that they would reverse everything that our government has done to protect Canadians from gun violence, including reversing the important measures we've announced today and over the last many years.
That's because banning legal guns does nothing to protect anyone, and all it ends up doing is disarming the law-abiding.
I believe that no one is made safer by adding more semi-automatics into our communities.
Maybe you should talk to the dozens, if not hundreds of people that have experienced home invasions recently.
And that is why I am here today. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to do the question and answer period, and I think I've had enough of this. The more I listen to these lies, the angrier I get, so I'm just going to cap it here. But if you are against these gun bans and you are against the Liberals using this as an election issue to garner more support and try to pit uneducated people in the city against firearms owners, then what you need to do, or at least one of the things you can do, is join the CCFR or donate to the CCFR and just do whatever you can to spread the word that these gun bans are not going to do anything, and that it's the illegal guns, which the government doesn't seem to care that much about, that are the real problem. And the other problem is the soft on crime policies, where you have repeat violent offenders getting out on bail the same day, where you have repeat violent offenders getting extremely light sentences rather than being locked away for years and years and years. That's what is actually going to make people safe. Taking away guns from someone like me who has no criminal record. I've never threatened anybody in my life. I haven't even been in a fight since I've been an adult, right? People like me, we follow the law, we try to stay out of trouble, and we just want to have our guns for sport shooting and hunting. And actually, I'll give you one example. This was something that happened recently to me. This is a perfect example of why people should be allowed to own guns. Last Sunday morning, my wife and I were in bed. The kids were away at the grandparents for the weekend. We were sleeping in a little bit, and my wife heard this weird barking noise. So she gets up and looks out the window, and there was a coyote. We live in a rural area on a large property, and this coyote was about 30 yards from our house, and it was trying to lure our dog away from the house. And what the coyotes do is one coyote will lure the dog away, and then when it gets far enough away, all the other coyotes will basically ambush the dog and kill it, and they'll eat it. And so, of course, because I follow the law, I had to go open up my safe, get my hunting rifle, go somewhere else, get my ammunition, and by the time I got back upstairs, it had seen my wife and the coyote was gone. It's not so much about whether or not I shot the coyote, but just that's the type of situation where a semi-automatic gun that shoots something like .223 would be perfect for that job. So now I have to worry about my dog and my children because I got coyotes near my house that I have to deal with. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Try to have a good weekend. I know I am. I'm going to try to forget about this, at least until Monday. Take care, guys.